From one sports fan to another, good morning. How are we doing? It's great to be here. This is episode 8 of 933 Sports. So, 2 episodes a week, that's a month. It's awesome. I'm really happy to be at that mark. Really happy to be doing this and ready to see where it keeps going. Got a lot of support on it so far. Appreciate everybody who keeps listening. Kind of keep chugging away at this thing and see where it goes. So, really grateful for that. If you're listening to this on day of release, happy Friday, happy Memorial Day weekend. It's a crazy time of year, graduations, everything. So, hope life's treating you well. Outside of that, for actual sports stuff, there's not a whole lot going on. Conference finals started in the NBA. That Spurs Thunder series is very good through the first 2 games. Game 1 was one of the best NBA games I've seen, just period. It was fantastic. Game 2 was great. Game 3's tonight, time of recording, so looking forward to that. Cavs are done. They're done. I mean, the Knicks are good. The Cavs might get swept. I could see it. I know they have the next 2 at home, but that could be very likely. We'll talk more about that as those series progress, though. Today, what I really wanted to talk about, I mentioned this in my intro in the last episode, but you haven't listened to that, go back, listen to it. PGA Championship recap. It's really, really good. I'm proud of that episode. Something I mentioned at the top of the episode, though, was Aaron Rodgers re-signing with the Steelers, and he did confirm this will be his last year. He did confirm this will be his last year. That on its own, I wasn't going to make an episode on it. I was going to save a lot of that conversation until closer to football season. But then what ended up happening is yesterday, Matthew Stafford signed a 1-year extension to his contract. He had a year left on his current contract, and he signed a 1-year extension. So he is contractually tied to the Rams for the next 2 years. And the Rams just took Ty Simpson in the draft. They clearly want him to be Stafford's replacement when Stafford ultimately does retire. And it looks like it's going to be like 2 more years, try and maybe win another Super Bowl. They'll be the betting favorites in Vegas this year, especially if they do win it. Wouldn't mind trying to defend that title next year. And so when you look at those stories put together between Rodgers and Stafford, then it becomes something a little more to talk about. And that's really what I focus today on. It's just kind of these old guys and, just what it means to retire, what it means for them to step away. Especially you see it a lot more and more nowadays with these quarterbacks. They're just playing longer for the most part, especially when you have the play style that some of these guys do. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that, speak on that. Today might be a bit of a shorter episode, as I'm sure a lot of y'all are dealing with a lot of stuff this time of year. It's a busy time of year for a lot of people. I am no exception to that rule as well. So we'll see where it goes. But anyway, to fully dive into it, so Aaron Rodgers confirmed that this will be his last year with the Steelers. He signs the 1-year contract. He gets directly asked in the press conference, have you given any thought to whether or not this will be your last year? And he just flat out comes out and says, this is it. This is the last year, and then after this, I'm done. One last ride with Mike McCarthy. They're getting reunited. They won a Super Bowl together in Green Bay. Part of a lot of Rodgers' earliest success was with Mike McCarthy. So they'll get to run it back one more time. They'll get to, see how that goes in Pittsburgh. I'm not expecting much from the team. Like I said already, I don't think it's going to change much about how they actually perform. But what I think is interesting is, Rodgers it's kind of been a will he, won't he with Rodgers for a couple of years. Really ever since he left Green Bay. Like, when he lost to the Lions and missed the playoffs in Green Bay, and he was walking off with Randall Cobb, and it was just kind of like, is this the last time they walk off the field together? We kind of knew he was done in Green Bay, but we kind of figured he was still going to keep playing. There was a pretty good really every offseason since it's been, is he done? Is he done? I mean, he tears his Achilles 4 plays into his Jets tenure. We're like, is he even going to be able to come back from this? Is he not even going to get a say on whether or not he plays again? Then he says, no, I want to actually give this thing a shot. He plays the 1 year as the full starter for the Jets. He doesn't play that poorly. If you look at his numbers, the Jets are just a mess, so it was not his fault. They had just a lot bigger issues. And so he does that, and then it's like, okay, is he done now? And then he goes to Pittsburgh, and they have some more success. They just kind of do their Pittsburgh thing, and then it was like, okay, now is he done? And now he's just come out and said, I'm done after this year. And I think we saw this with Brady too. When you're a great player, an all-time great player, you want to go out on your own terms. And there's two levels to it. You want to go out on your own terms, but you also want to be able to, contend up until the end. And you want to go out on a high note. And so, I think with Rodgers, it's one of those things where he's still in the position he can go out on his terms. Thankfully. For a minute there, especially with the Achilles, we thought that wasn't going to be the case. And he wants to contend till the end. And I think, you look at the last 3 years especially, really, think about it this way. The last 4 years of his career, if you include his last 5 years, check my math, I might be wrong. In the last previous 5 years, Aaron Rodgers has played in only 2 playoff games and has lost both of them. Now one of them was, if I'm remembering correctly, it was 5 years ago. They lost to the Niners in the divisional round. They had the first round bye, and they were underdogs, fair, but it's still, when you're in that position, it's like, he's an all-time great. He's a first-ballot Hall of Famer. He has 4 MVPs. He has a ring. There is no denying that he is one of the greatest to ever do it. It's like he's obviously a top 10. It's really just, is he undisputably top 5? Which I would say probably, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. That being said, he has not contended for anything these past few years. And I think he really wants to go out. At least, I think he kind of knows it's a foregone conclusion. If you were sitting down one-on-one and, there was no media, no nothing was going to get out, and he told you straight up, if you asked him straight up, do you think the Steelers are going to win the Super Bowl this year? I think he would say no. Because I think he just knows. He's been around the league long enough. He kind of knows that. But it's like, can they just win a home playoff game in the wild card? And can he just go out with that? Can he at least get one last notch in his belt and not make it look like, he's just kind of been hanging out for the past half decade and just playing out his twilight? Especially, he's always lived in the shadow of Favre, based on, ever since he was drafted, because he sat behind him, he replaced him in Green Bay, the similar success. He goes to the Jets like Favre and fails. He goes to a third team after the failure with the Jets. Favre with the Vikings made the NFC Championship game. And if Favre doesn't make a boneheaded decision in that game, which Favre tended to do in spots, the Vikings are in the Super Bowl and they might even win it. They probably could have beaten the Colts. So if you're Rodgers, it's like you've been living in this guy's shadow your entire career because that was just the nature of how things turned out. And so it's like you don't want to just retire and not have contended for anything late in your career, because then that kind of sets up this idea that, yeah, you weren't as good as him. And I think Rodgers struggles with that. And so but he also knows too, He's 42. Like, he's up there in age. He's not as mobile. He's just not as athletic. And at a certain point, he just has to be done. So he's like, okay, I want a Super Bowl with this coach. I like the people in the building. The people in the building like me. Everybody in that Steelers locker room wanted him to come back. He's very well liked there. And so he's like, okay, I'll come back for 1 year, get this done, and whatever happens, happens. I'm going to give it everything I got, and then I'm going to ride off to the sunset one way or the other. I mean, won't be the last we ever see of him. He'll have his bust in Canton, but, very, very soon. So either way, he's an all-time great, but I do understand his desire to go out with a bang. And, the same is true of Stafford. And Stafford's in a better position because, he was just in the NFC Championship game, had a very good chance to win it, and if they had won it, they probably would have won the Super Bowl. And so, if you're Stafford, it's like, let's just run it back. I can still sling it. I can still throw it. I have arguably the best supporting cast in the league. I have arguably the best head coach and the best play caller in the league. Like, why would I not ditch this situation? I just won the MVP. I mean, we don't talk about that enough. Like, we're talking about how, like, Stafford, yeah, he's in the twilight of his career. He doesn't have many years left. He just won the MVP. Yeah, he's in his late 30s, but, like, he just won league MVP. He's clearly still got it. Like, he can clearly still sling it. Now, I get it from his perspective. He's got 4 kids. He's got other stuff he wants to do in life. Like, I get it. At a certain point, he's like, I just got to hang him up. And I think from his perspective, it's like, I don't want to play too long, play past this Super Bowl window, and then my final year, I'm on a 5-6 win team. And it's just Detroit, the beginning of his career in Detroit all over again. So I think with Stafford, it's like, yeah, let's do 2 years. Like, we got 2 cracks at this thing. And I think that's smart too, because he knows he can play that long. He can last that long. And it's like, yeah, say, by week 8, both Puka and Devontae are out with injury, and, they're going to be lucky just to clinch a wild card. It's like, yeah, you'd maybe like to be under contract for 1 more year to give it one last ride, one last shot to actually go out and win this thing. And plus, too, I think if you ask Stafford, he feels like he kind of owes it to McVay. He owes it to the organization to, mentor Ty Simpson and make sure he leaves the organization in a good spot. The Rams invested heavily into him with that trade that got him there, and he's invested heavily back into them. What's crazy to me is that, Stafford, when it's all said and done, will be remembered for his time with the Rams more than his time with the Lions, just because, all he did with the Lions was lose, and with the Rams, he won a Super Bowl, he won league MVP, like, he cemented his legacy as an all-time great, and so, and that's when it's tough. It's like, he's in the time of his career that, when he was in his 3rd year in the league, just pulling a number out of the air, when he was in his 3rd year of the league, this is the opportunity he was dreaming of, is to be a perennial contender, and so it's hard to just walk away when this is what you spent your whole career, this is the point you wanted to get to. And now, granted, it's been a couple of years since they won the Super Bowl, but I think that's the impressive part about it, is he got to LA, he got to go immediately contend and win a Super Bowl, and then they got to retool for a year or 2, and now he's right back into the thick of it. And it's like, that's a fun locker room. That's a fun environment. It's hard to just step away from that. And it's the same thing with Rodgers. He really bonded with a lot of the guys in that Steeler locker room. It's hard to walk away. It's hard to step away from that. And I brought it up earlier, Brady had the same issue. He retired, and then he unretired like 2 months later, and then he played another year, and it didn't go so well. And then he officially hung it up. And, we've seen guys make a mistake and retiring too late, almost, in some ways. Now, Tom's Tom. He's the greatest to ever do it. It wasn't going to change anything one way or the other, so whatever. But it is a fine line you walk. It's a very difficult decision to make, and especially when, like Stafford, Rodgers, Brady, all these guys, they live and breathe football. They don't There is an underlying fear, especially when you're Rodgers or even Brady. Like Rodgers doesn't have a great relationship with his family. Brady, has a relationship with his kids, but he's had some marital issues in the past. There's all this other stuff going on. They spend so much time wrapped up in this stuff. It's like, do you think they ever ask themselves, like, who am I without football? And that's a hard thing to figure out. That's not, they're not alone in that. Like, of course, I'm not asking myself, who am I if I wasn't playing football, because I'm not playing football. But there are things, I ask myself, who would I be if I wasn't doing X, Y, or Z? And, I think that's something to be said. And it's not just football. I mean, look at LeBron in the NBA. He's been playing for 23 years. He's been told for, well over half his life, since he was like 16, he's been told, you are this all-time great basketball player. Basketball is what you are. It's what you're all about. And so when we're like, is LeBron going to hang it up? Hart going to hang it up? It's like, does he know who he is outside of basketball? And maybe he does, and I'm not speaking for anybody, but it's a very tough question to wrestle with. It's a very tough thing to look in the face and deal with. So what I would really say is with these guys, and, I did a episode a couple weeks ago, and I would listen to this one too if you haven't. I did an episode on legacies, and, legacy is more about what you do in the prime of your career, because that's where you win, and whether it's win accolades, whether team or individual, and that's really what cements your legacy. And so, for these guys, especially Rodgers and LeBron, like what they do right now in the twilight of their careers is not going to matter as much when it's all said and done, because we're going to remember things that what we're going to remember about them is things that have already happened. And unless, somehow Rodgers like wins the Super Bowl, which nobody sees happening. Barring something crazy, we're not going to remember anything they do going forward. And so they're just doing it solely because they want to at a certain point. I mean, Rodgers isn't really in the ballpark of any more record leaderboards if he's only playing one more year. LeBron has every record, so it's like, why? I mean, he's just chasing ghost and just trying to raise the bar as high as he wants to raise it. Like, these guys are doing it solely for the love of the game. And, it's a tough spot for them to be in. It's a tough spot for anybody to be in. It's in, what I would say is, they need, like I said earlier, they want to go out on their own terms, but they want to be competitive in how they do it. And I think, you look at LeBron in LA, it's like he has yet to have a true playoff run with Luka. Luka didn't even play in the playoffs this year. And so it's tough for him to just be like, well, I'm just going to throw away that opportunity to actually have a playoff run with one of the best players in the world. I mean, Luka is the best co-star LeBron's ever had when you really look at it, because it's the one time where LeBron hasn't been the best player on his own team. And he's never really gotten to have a playoff run with him. So that's unfortunate in of itself. It's shorter episode today. I don't really have too many more thoughts on that. It is going to be a little interesting these next couple weeks because, there's not a ton going on in the sports world. I'm going to have a busier schedule, things coming up, just life stuff. And, like I said, it's just kind of a dead time. If you have any ideas, anything you want to hear about, text. If you know me personally, text me. If you follow the Instagram page, DM me. 933 Sports on Instagram. Give it a follow. And we'll look into that as well. If you just have any questions that you want me to answer here on the show, we can do that. I'm kind of flexing it out a little bit until, football season starts. Of course, next 2 months, we'll have major championship golf going on. We'll have some baseball stuff, but really until training camp starts in 2 months for football, it's going to be kind of get the stories that you can get and go from there. So appreciate everybody listening. Just wanted to get something out today, chop it up a little bit on a topic that I just found interesting, a pattern that I'm noticing. And yeah, everybody have a good one. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend.